everyone, it's Hailey, and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite adult romances. A couple of things to address before I get into the video. One, we're in a new setup, kind of. I am sitting in my new armchair, which is really exciting. I thought that this would be kind of a fun way to film things. I don't really know. I just wanted an armchair in my office so that I can read in it, but I was also like, I can film some videos in it. I feel like it's cute and cozy and fun. I hope you guys like it. But one thing that I have gotten into over the past year that you guys know if you've been watching my channel is adult romances. It's something I never used to read before, but I think around last March, so about a year ago now, I gave one a chance and I fell in love with it, and then I started reading more of it. And there have been some hits along the way, there have been some misses along the way, but today I wanted to talk about my favorites because a lot of you guys have been asking how to start with adult romance because it can be a really intimidating genre, just like any other. There's a lot out there and there's a lot of niches to it as well. The first thing I would say with getting started with adult romance is that it's going to be a process of figuring out what you like, just like any other kind of reading, but I feel like specifically with romances, it's kind of a personal thing of what you'll enjoy. Like, there are so many different tropes that you'll see over and over again because it's definitely a genre that feeds off of convention. So there's like the hate to love, enemies to lovers, and those are two super popular ones, but they're also ones that I'm not generally a huge fan of. I tend to like the second chance romance, which is where it's like a couple that meets again and they end up falling in love all over again. I like friends to lovers. I kind of like the sweet romances, and I don't like too much smut. I have kind of like a smut limit, and it's kind of lower than I feel like a lot of other people's are because I can't take the very smutty ones seriously for whatever reason. But I have a stack of books here that kind of fulfills that and might give you an idea of what I like with my adult romances. I'm always looking for more, so if you guys have any recommendations for some that you think I would like based on these, I would love to hear them. I know a lot of you are probably sick of hearing about adult romances, but I'm getting back into other genres as well. It's just such easy, quick reads in the adult romance genre that I can't help but constantly devour them. When I first started, I was reading so many so quickly, but now I've kind of slowed down because the past few that I've read have been kind of meh. But let's just get into the recommended reads that I have for you guys for adult romance. I think I would be remiss not to start with the book that started it all for me and is kind of what I picture as my perfect adult romance. It's definitely my all-time favorite, and that is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. I took a chance on this for, I don't even know what reason. Like, I don't know why I picked this up. I think it was because Zoe said that it was super cute, and I was looking for something that was cute and quick, and I just ended up giving it a chance. And I don't know if my sister read it before I ended up reading it, but once I did pick it up, I read it in a day. I couldn't put it down. I just fell in love with the characters. For me, characters are what make a romance, and I feel like it's like that for a lot of people because a romance is probably going to be more character driven than it's going to be plot driven, and that was definitely the case here. Hazel and Josh were just such lovable characters. Hazel is like over the top quirky. She is just totally out there. She has all these pets. She's a kindergarten teacher, and she's the polar opposite of Josh. Josh is very straight-laced, kind of goes about his business, but they've known each other for a very long time, but they've never gotten together. But Hazel has always wanted to, and she sees this as her final opportunity to do so. She's like, yes, we are finally going to date, and you just follow their journey across their relationship. This isn't very smutty. There's very few sex scenes, but it still was just so cute. Like, so cute. I think opposites attract is another trope that I like, and that's definitely what you're getting here. And it's just two characters that you can't help but fall in love with, and you want them to fall in love with each other. You are just the entire time absolutely rooting for them, and when it finally happens, it's like, ah, which I don't consider saying that the couple gets together to be a spoiler because that's what you expect from a romance. So if you consider that to be a spoiler, then maybe don't watch this video. I'm not going to tell you how. I'm just going to like go under the assumption that you know that they're going to get together in the end, because that's what a romance is. A romance is supposed to make you feel good, and you have the couple getting together in the end. So just to preface this, but the work for it is totally worth it because it's a lot of fun to watch. This is just fun, quick, easy, and a romance that I would recommend starting off with because, like I said, it's not super heavy in the sex scene, so if that's something that might make you uncomfortable for whatever reason, then definitely check this out. And either way, just check this out. It's so much fun. I loved it. I don't know if you got that. Speaking of Christina Lauren, they are probably my favorite romance authors. It's a romance author duo actually, but Love in Other Words is another book that I completely fell in love with when I read it. This is very different than Josh and Hazel in a way. It does also feature the second chance romance trope, but it's more intense. So this alternates between then and now, and this follows Macy and Elliot, who grew up together at their cottage. There's been tension between them romantically the entire time, and they end up getting together but then breaking up, and you're kind of learning why that happened and what the fallout of their relationship was, told in alternating chapters between then and now. So you're piecing together as they have met again in the present day, and then also what happened in the past that brought them together but then ultimately pulled them apart in the end. I found this to be really emotional because Macy isn't really in a place in her life where she's happy, and she's also had a kind of difficult time growing up. She lost her mother very young, and she holds on to a lot of emotional baggage, and to see all of that kind of come to the forefront again when she meets Elliot again was just very touching. And it was kind of so much work to get to their relationship, as you were like, is it actually going to happen? Because there's so much baggage associated with it, and it's been years and years and years, so you don't know if they can actually get past that. This is also the perfect romance book for a book lover. Books are a very prevalent part of the story. It's one of the things that they bonded over, and Elliot particularly is super bookish, and he's great. He was a great love interest to follow, and the bookish part of this was one of my favorite aspects of the story. But overall, it was just super emotional and intense. If you're looking for something that is more emotional and has more of that storyline to it rather than just kind of a superficial romance, then this might be a good one for you. I'm kind of switching gears here. So I mentioned in the beginning about enemies to lovers and that being very big, at least from what I've seen in the romance world. So I've read a couple. I feel like I don't generally gravitate toward them, but there are so many out there that it just ends up being a thing. So I kind of happen upon them without even looking for them. But one of my favorites would have to be The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is an enemies to lovers romance following Lucy and Joshua, and they have just not gotten along since the very beginning when they started their jobs at this publishing firm, and they are in competition now for the same promotion. So their tensions have come to an all-time high, and obviously that kind of ends up sparking some romantic feelings between the two of them. It just is like the feelings have nowhere to go, and they end up going to the romantic side, which is nice. This is once again kind of an opposites attract sort of thing, and that is part of the reason why the two characters don't get along in the beginning. But when they finally come together, sparks fly, and you find out that there is a lot more to them than meets the eye, particularly Joshua. You find out there's a lot going on behind the scenes with him, and you see Lucy discover that too and realize, oh, maybe he's not as bad as I expected. And usually I feel like with enemies to lovers, there are a lot of those tense scenes, and that's not necessarily what I'm looking for when reading a romance, but this one did have a lot of really cute and touching scenes as well, which is why I think I really liked it. I don't remember if this one was dual perspective. I believe it was, but I don't remember, and it also doesn't say at the top if it is. Like usually it'll say the name, like Josh and Hazel was dual perspective. What other ones did I talk about? Love in Other Words wasn't. So one thing that I really enjoy with adult romances is when it's dual perspective. A lot of times you only get the female's perspective, and I like to get, or at least in straight romances, I like to get both sides of the story. I think it makes it very complete, and it's just touching for me to see both of them and what they're feeling and what they're thinking about the same things. And you're like, they don't know what they're thinking, you know, because communication is usually a big issue in these kinds of stories, but you know, and it's just kind of like a little bit of dramatic irony there that I just love. Speaking of enemies to lovers, but not speaking of straight romances, next is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. When this came out, it kind of just like blew up everywhere, and it honestly is for good reason. This is a fantastic romance that is so well-rounded. That's like the one thing that comes to mind when I think of this story. It has a political aspect to it. It has enemies to lovers. You have the first son of the President of the United States, and you have Henry, Prince of Wales, and they just haven't gotten along, and then there's this huge public scandal, and to kind of cover that up and smooth things over, they have to come up with a plan to try and show the public that they are friends, as fake as it might be, but then it doesn't end up being fake. There's a scene with a turkey and Thanksgiving, and it's like a live turkey, like it's just like the gobble, you know, all that stuff. I don't know why I'm describing it like this, but it is just so fun. So much hilarity, so much going on. I loved the political aspect. It has a lot of important commentary on things that are going on today, and it just was such a sweet romance. Definitely check it out. There is a reason so many people have been talking about this book and going wild for it. And it is a good reason, okay? It is so, so good. I will say, this did take me a little bit to get into. At first I was kind of like, okay, I don't really get it. But once I got it, I really got it. And I understood why all the hype exists. Next are a couple of romances that I was pretty skeptical going into, but they ended up being a very pleasant surprise. So first up is The Bromance Book Club by Lyssa K. Adams. I've talked about this before, and you guys can all probably recite the first line of the synopsis by now, because that is what made me so skeptical about this. So it's Nashville legend second baseman Gavin Scott's marriage is in major league trouble. I almost messed it up, but I didn't. I'm not really into the sports romances. I don't really care about that sort of stuff. I'm not really into the Office sort of thing. Like, I just want something cute and sweet. So if those are elements to it, fine, but it's not something that I really gravitate towards. So that being so prevalent in the synopsis, I thought that this was going to be a very sports-centric romance, but I ended up picking it up anyways because I had seen some pretty good reviews, and also I think it was on sale, so I was like, you know what, we'll just give it a go, because the rest of the concept sounds really cool and like it's gonna be a lot of fun and very funny. So like I said, his marriage is in trouble, and that's one of the things that I really liked about this book, actually. I will get to that later. I need to continue with the synopsis. So his marriage is in trouble, and he ends up joining this book club, where the first rule of book club is you don't talk about book club. It's with all of Nashville's elite men, a bunch of them businessmen, sports athletes, what a dummy. You know what I mean. Basically, it's a lot of really popular people in Nashville who get together for this book club. It's all these men who read adult romances and like steamy regencies, all those sorts of things, to try and figure out what the woman in their life want and how to keep them happy and be a good husband or partner or whatever to them. So he's very skeptical joining this book club. They are reading this steamy regency novel that is called Courting the Countess, I think is what it was, and along the way he's trying to prevent his wife Thea from filing for divorce. He's trying to fix their relationship before it is irreparably broken. So what I was saying is, one of my favorite things about this was that it was about an old relationship and repairing that. I liked that it had its foundation, so it did jump into the story, but I didn't mind it because it was an older relationship that was coming back again. There were a lot of really sweet moments with Thea and Gavin and their kids. They have twin girls, and I've never read an adult romance where the characters have children, but I liked that aspect of it because those were some of the cutest moments, was between the entire family. So it was a family romance, and it's very different than any of the other ones on this list because of that, and because it was a relationship recently that they are trying to fix. So Gavin found out that his wife was faking her orgasms, which is why their marriage is in trouble, and he got really mad about that. So that's why they're having issues, because he reacted like an asshole. But you see him putting in the effort to try and fix things, and both of them really putting in that effort. And I loved the fact that there were excerpts from the actual Regency novel that they were reading, and it just was really fun and funny and a quirky, different sort of story. There were some soapboxy moments, but overall, I had a blast reading it. Next is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. I wasn't skeptical about this one until I found out what it was about, which was when I went to go and pick it up and read it. I had no clue what this one was about, and I just picked it up because I had just gotten into adult romance, and I was kind of picking up all the ones that I had seen around, just not even reading anything about them, which was kind of dumb, but it ended up working out for the most part. So this is one of those, and I found out it was about a male escort, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to be a little bit too steamy for my personal taste, and it definitely was very steamy. I think it was like my smut limit. Like I said, I kind of have that personal limit, and I think this book was it. So this is actually an own voices romance. The main character, Stella, has autism spectrum disorder, and that is a prevalent part of the story that I thought was very well represented, and I liked learning more about that, and I like that it was so prevalent in the main plot line. But she ends up hiring male escort Michael to teach her all about the one thing that she can't really understand. She's very into numbers and analytical things, but she can't understand romance and relationships, and particularly sex. So she hires him to teach her all about that side of the world and make her better at it, because she's been crushing on this guy at her work for a very long time. So it starts off with those kind of instructional sessions, but then it blossoms into something more. This is one that is told in dual perspective, which was one of my favorite parts about it. I loved Michael's portions, and I liked that his family got involved. I like when the romance is well-rounded, where you have the family getting involved as well. It's just, it brings it to reality, I guess, for me, and I think that it makes me believe the relationship a little bit more. Stella and Michael's relationship was beautiful, and watching it blossom was also beautiful. I loved seeing it go from this kind of business transaction to being something where they couldn't bear to be apart, and oh, it was just so sweet. Finally is a little bit of a different adult romance. This is one that, at least in my bookstore, was shelved in the fiction section. So while it is a romance, it kind of is bordering on that line between like chick lit and romance, but that is One Day in December by Josie Silver. I read this around Christmas time, and it is great for December, but you can also read it whenever. But this follows Lori, who is on a bus and sees this guy, and she like falls in love with him at first sight, but then the bus drives away and she's like, I'm never gonna see him again. She tells her best friend all about him, and they refer to him as like bus guy. She knows everything about how she fell in love with him that one day, but then Lori's best friend ends up introducing her to her new boyfriend, who happens to be bus guy, whose name is actually Jack. So this is told across years. I can't remember how many. I feel like it's 8 or something like that, but years and years and years of missed opportunities and dealing with the fact that her best friend is dating the guy that she kind of immediately fell in love with, and they're gonna have to see each other all the time. And it reminded me a lot of Love, Rosie, which I've only ever seen the movie for, but I did really like the movie, and it just was like such a slow burn, but also very worth it in the end. I just liked it a lot. The audiobook was great. So those are all my recommendations for adult romance. If you are a seasoned veteran for the genre, this probably wasn't a very helpful video for you guys, because these are a lot of the popular, more heavy hitters. But for someone like me who is newer to the genre, I hope that you guys might give some of these a go and kind of see what you like. It's definitely a genre where you have to play around with things a little bit. I mean, any genre is, but I just find that romance is more so. Maybe that's just me though, but I would recommend going to the library, seeing if you can find any of these books, so then you can kind of get a better idea of what you are looking for with romances. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know what your favorite adult romance is, or if you like the genre, or even if you don't and don't want to read it. Thank you for still watching this video, but I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!